We're talking Orlando Magic today, so stick around. Joe, welcome back to the Super Design Bowl.
What's up? I'm not also this prick. That's Aaron.
Oh yeah, you're a completely different prick.
I'm a different prick.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for stepping in for Aaron today. Aaron's been busy painting a mural.
Walking his dog.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he's busy with. Who cares? I don't know if you caught the last episode, Joe.
Which was the last one?
The last one was the I don't know what it was, but
I never watched.
But yeah, I know. But we had a brand new sponsor for that show, and that went really, really well. And and in honor of the Orlando Magic, which you're going to be talking about today, we got a new sponsor for this week.
Lay it on me.
You ready for this?
Let's make that them ad dollars.
Yeah, seriously.
Feeling 7 Up, I'm feeling 7 Up. Sharing styles, sharing smiles, feeling 7 Up. It's a crisp, refreshing feeling, crystal clear and light. America's turning 7 Up, and it sure feels right. Feeling lucky 7, 7, feeling 7, heaven, feeling 7, 7, 7 Up. Feeling 7 Up, I'm feeling 7 Up. Feeling 7 Up, I'm feeling 7 Up.
Are you feeling 7 Up, Joe?
Dude, Magic looks good. He looks good there.
Well, that was like 1977.
He looked. You could have fooled me.
So the reason that I actually played this vintage Magic Johnson commercial is because I believe that the Magic would not be called the Magic if there was never a player named Magic Johnson who was huge in the 80s.
Interesting.
Because the Magic is a dorky name. Now let's get into it. Let's bring in our designers, Joe Flores and Mike Tabie.
What up?
Hey, fellas.
Hey, guys.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
First, before we get into anything, thumbs up, thumbs down. Is the Orlando Magic a dorky name for a basketball team?
Could be better.
Could be better.
Yeah, could be better. Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I mean, I feel when I was a kid, and I remember when they first announced the team, being like, really? Like, kind of perplexed and not really wanting to wear the jersey, or get into it too much. So
yeah.
So
but Mike, you're a Florida guy, right? Originally, is that not true?
Yeah. Originally, I grew up in Florida before I moved to Brooklyn.
Yeah, but
and now I'm in Texas.
So, full disclosure, me and Mike, we've known each other for a long ass time now. Technically, I probably met you in 2008, 2007, maybe 2008.
I would say it was probably like my first flat stock that I went to, which was around between 2006 and 2008.
So you started as an intern at Lure Design in Orlando, right?
I started as a junior designer.
As a junior designer, okay.
With Lure Design, in Orlando, Florida, and that was when I kind of got my introduction to screen printing and rock posters and all that whole world. And Jeff took me to my first flat stock, and I'm just mind blown meeting everyone. And that was when we first met, and kind of kept up ever since then.
Yeah. And where you first met your wife. Is that wrong? Is that right? No?
Yeah, no. My wife, Karen, did a mentorship program with Jeff. And I was, at the time, I was sort of managing the screen print setup and all the, printing and things that were going on. So it was that summer she had just graduated and we needed extra help. So we hired her and one of her friends to come in and print, and that's like how we met.
Yeah, that's crazy, and it's how much it's affected your life. So when you got your start, going to flat stock and doing gig posters, and you guys were doing regular design stuff too, but the aesthetics and the technology behind screen printing, I believe, at least affected how I thought about design and how I think about design now, and even the aesthetics and processes that I use in design. Do you think it's sort of stuck with you all these years?
Man, dude, it's made a massive difference in how I design, what I do, how I approach illustration, just figuring out how to design something for print before you're going to print it. And kind of by the time you're finished designing, your steps are finished and everything's ready to go, was like a major change in my process. Even now, with the agency I work with now, I manage a lot of the production in the agency, specifically because of that experience and what I've been able to do and learn. I have the background. Like, I understand dry offset and a number of other printing methods because I just take it all the way back to like screen printing.
Yeah. And so you were in Florida, and then you and Karen, your wife, move up to Brooklyn to start your own agency, right?
Well, we were it's close. We were in Orlando. Karen and I actually kind of parted ways at one point in Florida. Yeah. And then I bounced around. I actually went to Boston for a little bit. I actually went to Chicago for a minute. I went to LA for a minute. I was trying to just find somewhere to go for like a couple of weeks, just like seeing what it was like. Actually, like the first time I ever saw snow was in Chicago. It was awful. It was so bad. But yeah. And then I came home and I was like kind of bummed because I didn't know what to do. And I was like, fuck it, I'm booking a one-way ticket to New York. I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And Karen texted me and I was like, oh shit. I'm like, what are you doing? Let's go get a beer. And she's like, I can. I'm in New York. And I was like, funny you mentioned that. I just booked my ticket. I'll be there in a couple of days. Let's get that beer. So sort of like a rom-com style,
That's
totally.
Real. You just wrote the script.
The most romantic thing I've ever heard.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, she definitely found me wandering around Queens with no idea where to go, lost on the 7th train platform, and came and got me because I had no fucking idea what I was doing when I got there.
That's amazing. And then a couple years ago, you guys moved to Austin.
Yeah, 2 years, a little over 2 years now. We've been in Austin.
Wow. That's amazing. So let's go. Sorry, Joe, I've been ignoring you.
No, it's fine.
So where are you fighting out of, Joe?
Grand Rapids. I was originally from Chicago the past like 7 or 8 years. Grew up in the western suburbs, Lombard. So I've been there and then just recently moved up prior to the pandemic. So I've just been cooped up in Grand Rapids.
Why Grand Rapids?
Just it's in between where I exist and where my wife's family's from. So that was always a town we were kind of keen on.
I have some good friends. In Grand Rapids. It's a great town.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, the skate scene out here is awesome, which I love to do. So it's just awesome area, and hopefully I can get out and about post pandemic here. So
yeah. So are you a one man crew, or do you work for the man somewhere?
I work for the man, but I do sling some freelance on the side. So
yeah.
I work for a marketing company outside in Chicago, just remotely. So
okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, so it's a pretty nice gig. Solo designer there, and then I just sling some freelance on the side for some merchandise brands and whatnot.
Yeah, so I mean, your work is absolutely fantastic. I'm always like, I look at people's work like yours, and I'm like, well, they're amazing, they're awesome. I'm sure they're just doing their own thing,
Yeah.
Not that it's bad to like work for somebody else. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I'm just like I'm always just I'm like, well, you're talented enough to do it on your own if you ever wanted to, like you got the skills to pay the bills, right?
No, I appreciate that. I've always had goals and ambitions too, but I do like the stability of it right now, and with where I'm at right now.
Especially right now, yeah.
Yeah. So
the tough thing is healthcare, man. It's a like so many people like us don't leave their jobs specifically because of the healthcare hurdles. I think if we had universal healthcare, I think a lot more people would be leaving their jobs and being entrepreneurs.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Was that hard for you, Mike? I mean, when you started going on your own, you were probably in your 20s, late 20s or early 30s, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's less of a factor at that point because you think you're invincible, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for us, the only way we even could afford healthcare was because of the Affordable Care Act. Like that was it. That was the only reason. And it was scary. It was terrifying to kind of get into all that and figure that out. And even then, it wasn't great, but we had something. Yeah. And then right now I work for an agency here. I love my job. And it had a lot to do with having a kid and being like, I need the stability. I need the paycheck. I need the healthcare. I need to figure this out. So I totally respect that 100%.
Yeah. I mean, and Joe Moore, all about that too. I mean, the healthcare is so insanely important. We wouldn't have had a kid without Obamacare. Because they made it before Obamacare. You had to, not that I want to go down this healthcare talk, but like they made it law because before Obamacare you had to have pregnancy in part of your insurance paid for a year before you even got pregnant.
Oh my God, I remember that whole
right
thing. Yeah.
So Obamacare changed that, and then we were actually able to have a kid because otherwise we just couldn't afford it. Otherwise, it was nuts. So speaking of the magic of childbirth, let's
great segue.
Let's get into these logos. First of all, you guys killed it with these logos. Oh my God, these are some of my two favorite ones that we've hosted on the site, and I want to congratulate both of you guys on these awesome designs. But before we get into that, let's take a look at where the Magic were and are right now. And I'd love to get your opinions on this. What's your first impressions there, fellas?
Let me say, complete coward move, losing the A that is a star. Like just pathetic.
Overdid it though. They overdid it.
Yeah.
Look at this. 2001. They got it here, and
if your name is the Magic, I want to see so many stars. Just weak, cowardly, pathetic.
Let me tell you what I do like about the 2001 to present is the ball is not bad. That's not a bad magical ball, lightning bolt. That's well done, right?
No, it is. It's not too bad. I mean, it's better than the I don't know that
better than the 89.
Yeah, 89. I can't. That looks like it was printed with a dot matrix printer. It's so bad. So yeah, they fixed it.
What are your feelings on this? The blue update. I'm into that. I like.
I'm into it as well.
I like more
electric blue.
The other one's super dark, and if you see it on like the black jerseys and any of, especially with the pinstripes, it just kind of gets lost with that darker blue.
Oh, for sure.
I'm with you. I like the update there.
But yeah, going to like the 2001, it seems like pretty excessive with like the large stars. Like I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that meeting. Like, you know what this could use? Like another freaking large star.
I think if they would have left it to the one big star,
yeah,
it would have kept, more of the focus on that, like it would have been a little more impactful. But
it's weird. The word mark didn't much change. It's just kind of tightened up a little bit between. I mean the
from here to here.
To 2001.
Yeah, you're right.
It didn't change. They kind of it's got a little bit of an arc. Orlando kind of floating off in no man's land.
Yeah, this is
it's a little weird.
Yeah.
But overall, like the lockup, it's fine. It works.
It's okay. Yeah, it doesn't quite work with this ball.
Yeah, I was just looking at their the Magic Twitter account, and the ball. So their icon or profile picture is just the ball.
Yeah,
and it's weird. It feels, I don't know. It feels weird just on its own, especially in that ellipse of the like profile photos.
Yeah.
Well,
so
it's not going to work very well in a circle.
Yeah,
unless you did like a yin yang with it or something.
I'm wondering why don't you go with the basketball, the magical basketball? Why don't you go crystal ball with that?
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Or you could why not just dot the I with the ball?
Oh yeah, just like have it shooting across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, you'd also think that
the big bucks
they would have like some subtle like variations on this thing, right? Like you'd have a ball with the longer comet tail, and then like maybe one where it doesn't have as much of an extruded sort of lightning bolt thing. Like have a couple of sets of it that you can use it, because like no one at this point was ever thinking about social media avatars or anything like that.
Right. Like how's this going to look as a profile picture and so on and
so
forth.
But I mean 2011 to present, by that point somebody had to be thinking MySpace or some early adaptations of like needing iconography that go along with it.
Yeah.
And the type on this is fine, but it's not, there's nothing really special about it.
Yeah, it feels like something you've seen before,
Yeah. That's why I like the personality of like the 2001 to 2010. Like I wish I could have seen that like in the present day version.
Yeah, you could clean, if you clean this up, I think you could be really cool. I at least appreciate how thick the outlines are on the type and the ball, whereas here they don't match.
So let me ask you guys, what's the best version of this? Like if you had to rank these 1, 2, 3, what's
I mean this is ugly, but it's still got, at least it's got character.
It's charming. Yeah.
I mean, if I was gonna rock them, I'd probably go middle, right, left.
Yeah.
I think that's the right criteria. Like if I was gonna wear this, which one would I wear? I'd go middle, right, left. But if they would just the star on the eye, that's it. Just change the star on the eye. It's like good to go.
Oh yeah, then I'd be in love.
What's a better name, Magic or Wizards? Would you rather be the Magic or the Wizards?
I saw a thing about
they're both just not. They're not like aggressive athletic names. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The Wizards were born out of like the Bullets, right?
Yes, and I understand why they had to change it, but the Bullets is a freaking cool name. But I get it. But the Wizards, I mean, what is like? You got a bunch of guys in dresses, like.
Well, if you're gonna go Wizards
basketball, it's just like not. I'm scared to play basketball against the Wizards.
You could do some badass stuff with like Wizards as your iconography.
Yeah,
like. Well, let's talk about you guys' creative process here. So first, as customary, we start with the person that didn't get as many votes. Sorry, Mike, but. Sorry. But I love it. I love this. I love this design. Let's Tell us how you start. Since you're an Orlando guy.
Okay.
Tell us what went wrong.
I don't think here's the thing. I don't think anything went wrong with this. I think this is awesome.
Yeah,
I would totally wear this on a shirt.
100%.
Like absolutely. And I hate the Orlando Magic, and I would wear this on a shirt. That's saying something.
I appreciate that. It's funny. So Joe and I actually sent him some of my early sketches because like the very first sketch, like you asked me to do this thing, and I was like,
let's check them out. You sent me these sketches.
Yeah. Okay. So that one right there in the middle on the bottom row there.
Yeah.
The very first thing I did.
Which is so close to what
so close. And I remember I was just like, oh, this would be fun. I'm gonna just do a hat and like maybe make the hat like the rim. And then I was like, oh, I'll do a backboard, with the name. And then I was like, no, I'm not gonna be able to draw this net right. I'm like, I'll just do a hat. And I kind of went through all these things, and it was just not what I wanted to do. And I think I had just watched the Arsenal episode. And I remember watching that and being like, man, that's such a fucking cool team. And they have all this history and all these other logos to draw from.
Yeah.
Orlando Magic's got nothing.
They got nothing.
They got nothing.
Pinstripes and stars.
You got Houdini and David Copperfield.
Yeah. I mean, I was just kind of not feeling it. And, I even had like, Joe had sent me some of his sketches too, and had a similar sort of ball as the, sort of crystal ball at the bottom there on the bottom left. Horrible sketch.
Yeah.
I just couldn't come up with anything, and then I was flipping through an old mascots book that I had, and I was looking at the Mets, and I was like, Mr. Met, and I was like, man, Mr. Met's fucking cool.
Yeah.
Like, what if there was a Mr. Met for the Orlando Magic? Like, what if we just pretend that they had a history and had some kind of cool stuff for me to draw off of? So I sketched this guy up and was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like he's got some flavor to him. And there's actually another character from the old Orange Bowl. And it's a similar sort of guy, but it's an orange for the head. And I remember seeing that float.
Have that guy too. The Syracuse orange. Yeah.
So I kind of went that.
Let me ask you this. This looks actually like a legit marker comp. Wait, do you do this in Procreate, or is this a real marker comp?
No, it's Procreate.
Okay. They're getting pretty good at replicating an actual marker comp. Yeah.
It's a program. I've been trying to get better at it. It's just something I need practice with. So I think this was like, I'm like, this is the perfect time for me to, push myself and get better at this and try to learn this program a bit better. And then of course I did this sketch, and then I just went into Illustrator.
Well, I think that's fine. I've used Procreate and I try to get into it, but I have a Cintiq and I've had it for years, so I can draw right on my screen. So I kind of like, okay, I can just do this on my screen right in Illustrator, and then I don't have to pass it between programs or anything. So I just kind of, I don't know, just old dog, new tricks kind of thing. I don't know. Can't lose it.
Mike, let me ask you, was it one of those things where, first pass and this is what came out, or was this kind of a, after like several iterations?
This is definitely several iterations. I did like 5 or 6 versions of the face, different things in his hands, different sort of arm positions, played around with that cape for a little while, like just trying to simplify. I think I always put too much in at first, and then I have to try to edit because it just kind of gets to be too much.
Yeah. I like how his legs really kind of have almost a deco feel.
Yeah.
Like when those really old advertising mascots have.
And he's not like a modern, like yoked up looking mascot. Like he's just a happy ball man.
Okay, and so you have the guy, and then how do you go? Because honestly, you could have presented this as just the guy, right? That could have been your entry, or you could have presented this as just your typography, and that could have been your entry. You know what I mean? Like they work independently, of course, but then they also work together. So how did you? What were you thinking there?
I almost just sent you the guy, and I did the guy, and then I was like, I gotta come up with some way of doing, the type, and I almost did like just an ORL, or just like a small little Orlando Magic underneath it, or something along those lines.
Like on the hat or something.
Yeah, I had ORL on that little band in his hat too. But I feel like I'm a better designer with type than I am with illustration. So I was like, if I come at this and I don't put some type in here, I'm missing the mark. So I was like, I need to just do this. This is fun. And I struggled for a minute trying to figure out the right placement so it didn't obscure the typography too much, and sort of filled the square properly.
How much pressure do you guys put on yourselves on stupid shit like this? I'm just curious because when I do it, I'm really competitive and I put a lot of pressure on myself. Do you guys really just like, this is for fun, or are you really feeling the intensity here?
I mean, I definitely felt it. I was really nervous going into this. Like,
really?
All right, like how much of this effort do I want to put in? So like I felt like I was like Rocky going through it, just like training, with the mouses and whatnot.
He's doing sit-ups in his gym. And,
yeah. But no, I was definitely like nervous going into it.
Yeah.
I definitely looked at it as like a challenge to kind of like push myself, see what I can do with this.
Yeah.
So.
I have to point out real quick, Mike, my favorite thing about this lockup, the star inside the O dotting the I.
Yes.
Magic.
Chef's kiss, yeah.
Yeah. That was one of the things when I saw it, I was like, oh man, because I love old mascots and everything. I'm like, oh, this is great. The word mark is great. And then you kind of take a step back and like, oh, look at the eye. Oh my God, that's badass.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Sorry. Here's something I really like, and I would love to ask you about your process on this. So if you look at the legs, the black pants, and like even here where the line disappears. So when you do your sketch, you kind of have a black line around the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But then when you put it on a black background, you obviously lose that line. So when you're doing this, like, when does it hit you? Oh, I'll just do a blue line on the pants here, and I'll have just do it on one side, just kind of show a light source on this part. That seems simple, but that's actually really hard to like think that
restraint,
Yeah.
No, that's a really good thing to point out. I had started on a light blue background, and then it wasn't until I was like kind of working through it, and I was like, man, it doesn't have that like really fun sort of push and pull of positive and negative, and it's like it's got to go on a black background. And so I put it on the black, and then I was like trying to come up with what do I do, and I actually have this little Matchbox that I have saved that's like on my desktop. It's my desktop background, and it's this like it's old like Vegas sort of thing, and it's this girl with a top hat, and she's like sitting on this this little thing, and I was like, the top hat was drawn that way, and it had just a little blue hint and a little white hit, and I was like, that's how I do it right there. And I'm like, nice. Perfect. And I was like, came back and I drew the pants, and then I put the little stars in and was like, all right, so anything that's kind of facing this direction needs a little just hit of white,
the light source. Yeah.
And then it kind of set the rule, like anything that's black gets outlined in blue.
Nice. And one other question, you did something that I don't think I would ever do, which I love, is the lines in the type, which I think is a real kind of an 80s thing. I'm not sure where that, like the stripes, feels like something you'd see like on a t-shirt in the 80s or maybe I'm getting the era wrong, but where did that come from?
No, I think you're right. I would say maybe 80s. I had done the type, and I was trying to think of what to do to like make it a little bit more special, just give it like one little layer of something. And it just didn't feel right when it was all blue. And I tried a couple of different things. And it's just one of those things where like I get stuck and I just start flipping through ephemera and books and trying to find something that maybe hits me. And again, I went back to that old Mascots book and I was just flipping through and I saw something that had those little stripes and I was like, oh, that's cool. And and then I'm like, I can make them like thicker and then go thin. And, I can kind of extrude it out. And then that'll help me to make Orlando a different color, but still keep it integrated into the lockup.
That's what I teach, and that's one of the hardest things for me to get through to my students is like, when you're stuck, stop what you're doing and go look at things, right? Yeah. You can keep experimenting and push things around, or you could just like fill your brain with some like new ideas, to get to get the greases, the juices flowing to grease the wheels.
I might be using that.
Yeah, so I love hearing that part of your process, because I think that's what every good designer kind of does, gets out of their head. And that's probably something you maybe learned at Lure way back in your day, Yeah, this is awesome. So one last question, and I'm sorry I'm bogarting the questions here, but so once you have this all done in Vector, are you doing the rounded things all in Vector, or because the type, like especially on Orlando, it's sort of degraded a little bit. Are you doing that all in Vector, or are you doing that like as a final pass in Photoshop?
So I used to do it as a final pass in Photoshop, and then I realized with this project actually that I can do it in Illustrator.
Yeah, with the rounding corners tool.
Well, there's that, but you can actually. What I did is I flattened it as I flattened everything in black and white first, and then I rasterized it in Illustrator. And then in Illustrator, you can go through and there's a palette for Photoshop effects. And I do the stamp filter from Photoshop.
The stamp filter.
In Illustrator. And then I do the bitmap trace. And now bitmap trace is so much better than it used to be. And I actually watched a couple of old True Grit Texture Supply sort of little videos and things a while back. And they show you how to make a custom setting in the vector trace little palette, and I just saved that one, and I just always use it because it kind of does it. It does a really nice sort of
email you later so you can send it to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, CC me to that.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
You know who first taught me about the stamp filter? Aesthetic
Mark
Apparatus.
Ricky. Oh,
Aesthetic
really?
Apparatus, way back in the day, at one of the flat stocks. Dan from Aesthetic. He I was asking him, because just like I'm asking you right now, I mean, I go into everyone's booth and ask them how they're doing this and how they're doing that, and he's like, yeah, stamp filter, and I'm like, oh fuck yeah, okay.
It's funny because there's so many different ways of doing it. Again, like True Grit, I've reverse engineered a couple of their things by watching some of the the step by steps. But when we were at Lure, we did it a completely different way. We did mezzotint and then dust and scratch.
Oh, really?
And it did a completely different crunchy version of it. And Bricky was the one that taught me the stamp filter.
Really? He probably got it from me. who I gave it, which I got it from Aesthetic.
That's awesome.
It's cool because it's like you said, like if you did like a traditional kind of like rough and pass and everything, you run the risk of getting a little crunchy. But the way you did it, everything's just like perfectly smoothed over. You know what I mean? It gives it just that little bit of feeling, feeling worn and feeling kind of old and classic.
And then of course the paper texture that you've added as sort of a final touch.
Yeah.
Oh, it's on that subtle grit.
That's sweet.
Yeah, that stuff's fun. I always like that. I debated whether or not to show you to send the clean in or with this, and I was just like, if I'm going the whole vintage thing and I'm doing this like old school mascot, I might as well do it.
Yeah. Plus, you're your own client on this project, so just, go for it, fuck, put the texture on, that's fine. Speaking of texture.
Yeah.
Look at this guy, threw some more texture on it too.
That's probably why I lost to Brandon. I think it was just smooth, no texture.
Yours was smooth?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you would have put textures on yours, Joe,
I would have.
You would have been
so ashamed.
So let's Joe, let me just say, when this came over, I was like, oh shit, this is like logo design. Like this should be in the books and all the books and all the annuals. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like with minimal amount of design or lines. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You've simplified it down to where you've got the hat, the net, the stars, and the wand, and it's just like, okay, it was Mike, you were working on the same idea that Joe was obviously working with too, but it's sometimes you just get it just all the puzzle pieces fit together.
Yeah, this thing is fucking incredible, man. Like as soon as I had saw it, I was like, I'm done. I was like, and then Billy emailed me and was like, damn dude, you just walked into a buzzsaw of a design. I was like, yeah, I did. It's so good. And it didn't even hit me until after I came back and looked at it. I was like, and then I saw the eye and I was like, fuck, man. This is so good.
That was my element too of like, oh yeah, this is great. Oh, it's so clean. And then kind of like seeing the star and the O of Orlando on yours. Like then after, looking at it and coming back, I'm like, oh man, that eye. Oh God, that's so good.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much.
So let's walk us through your process a little bit. So, just like everybody, when you're starting a logo project for this, you look at what they had, and there really wasn't much to go from, except for the sort of colors that you guys sort of both stuck with to some degree. So here's one of the sketches that you sent me. I don't know if you want to talk about this at all.
Yeah, I was kind of just like working through it, just wondering, all right, like what kind of elements do I want to incorporate with this like rebrand? And so I was just kind of looking at like what is already pre-existent in the current like Orlando Magic, looking back at like their history of it. And so a lot of it like incorporated like the star elements. And so I was just kind of like thinking, all right, I'll include that. And then obviously like wanting to incorporate the ball in some way. So I was just thinking about like magician elements and like common, themes that exist through that. And I kept going towards the hat. So I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, you got to work that in some way. So I think Mike and I were riding the same wave, just thinking about like incorporating that like net element within the hat. So that was like one of my earlier sketches. And so I started with some other ideas, just kind of like seeing if anything else could work along those lines. But I just kept going towards the hat and the net. And so once I got that like in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to commit to that and try to make this work. And so like you were mentioning, the puzzle pieces, I think kind of just started to come together as I
do like what you were doing up here.
Yeah, that word mark is sort killer. And even just the single M kind of extruded a little bit. That's great.
Yeah, I know, appreciate it. So like I was thinking about like, interesting fonts I could kind of use, like incorporate in the rebrand. And that was like one of them that I was like going towards. So I think in one of the early iterations, I was trying to like work that in, but I figured with doing the net with the hat, I do some like simple sans serif within that, just so I wouldn't take away from like the mark that I was working on. So
yeah. So let's you show me some of your process stuff here.
Yeah, I cleaned that up for you. It was like this year.
Oh yeah, when I'm working, outside my artboard is like 100 things.
But yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just looking at it, I was just like, all right, I'll start with the ball, just kind of like work that out. So I had a couple options there. And then once I figured out like the silhouette of the hat, I was like, okay, like let's try to work out this net and, try with like the shape of it, obviously, because like I wanted that top hat to kind of like pull out at the bottom of the base. So just kind of messing around with that, and then just messing with the placement of like the ball within like the brim of the hat, seeing what would work. Do I want it? How far in do I want it? And then from there, I was just like figuring out like the font I wanted to use. So
yeah, what I like is the like on this one in particular. So you've got this line is where you've outlined it and then divided it or something like that.
Yeah.
And but this curve is the same curve that you've got here, I think.
Yep.
Right. And so, when you're design 101, it's about repetition of angles and curves and line weights and stuff like that. And so I love this little detail of, this wasn't just a random sort of curve, it's supposed to reflect this curve, and I really love what you did with your line weights too, so like this line weight is reflective of this, which is pretty reflective of your type, but the lines in your ball are slightly thinner, right? Because if they were as thick as your outlines, then that would create some sort of visual hierarchy noise. So it's just really well all around. It's well constructed, and then creating the division here, the line, that creates just that little bit of depth that you need. It's really well put together. When you're doing the curve type like this, are you just using the warp functions?
For this, I was just using the warp function, but I think if I had like a second pass at it, I would have tried to like explore that a little bit more, like have the lines more like straight instead of like bent. Especially like with an M, you can notice it in the C. So I think I would have explored that a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I don't dislike it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It almost, with kind of that, I guess, bulge a little bit. It almost, it fits with that, with that round ball, with the curves of the rim, and even what's the word I'm looking for? But how the net kind of is more concave, where you got that convex curve on Magic. It balances well.
Yeah, it almost makes it like an eyeball shape. If you think about it.
Yeah, it's to Billy what you had said before. It's something you would never have done. Like I never mess with, whenever I do the arc or the arch, I don't usually mess with the like camber. Where like you can kind of do that horizontal and vertical.
Yeah.
And like you did, but it looks really good. It looks like it's like it just came up over the ball, and it's and it has like some sort of extra perspective to it, which in the word magic, it makes a lot of sense.
It does. Like if I were doing it, it would just been in curve type. It's boring. So I like that. I enjoy that extra element. Sorry, I've been talking over what I was. I asked you a question, and then I just start talking. I'm so great at this. So, like, when you get it done, are you just like, I just hit lightning in a bottle with this thing, or like, were you feeling good about it, or
no? I think my mind was unrailing, like, man, this is like coming together, because usually there's like some sort of like hiccup or bump in the road where you're like, all right, like, how do I work around this? So I think for me, the one element that was giving me like the most trouble was like just like the wand, like the baton, because like for the longest time I had like the white portion of it up on top, just to like represent the lowercase I.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was like, it doesn't really make sense up there. It should be at the bottom. But I was more worried about how it would be perceived. Like, oh, why does he have this like upside down lowercase I? So I was kind of in my head about that. But at the end of the day, I was like pretty stoked on how it was coming together. And so, it was just kind of like, felt like a home run at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think if part was actually added up here, I think it would have thrown the balance. Of it off. This retains the balance of everything.
Same thing, similar. If you were to, shorten the I to where say the bottom of the Y part is kind of in line with that curve of the G and the C, I think it would lose something. Like, so extending it that little bit, having it at the bottom, like you said, it all just kind of fits together.
Yeah, it just felt so wrong, like doing it in some weird way, and I was just like, So I think like what we were talking about earlier, just like kind of stepping away. I took a little break from it and came back and I'm like, oh no, this makes sense. So
but if you're a magician standing above your hat, you are pointing it down.
Yeah, I was trying to like replicate that. Like,
yeah,
this is how they do it, right?
No, that's exactly how I saw it. It's like a magician just tapped the hat and made the ball appear.
Yeah.
Have you tried? Have you guys tried? I ask this like on every episode. Have you tried like posting this on any like Magic fan boards or anything like that? Because that's always a blast to do. But I would love to see the reaction.
I know. I would never know if there'd be like some gatekeepers like, no, you're interfering with like the preservation of like the historic logo or something.
The historic logo from 30 years ago. Yeah.
No, I feel like I'd be if I did something like that, I would relentlessly look at the comments and then it would just eat me up, and it would be very upsetting, and the trolls would totally get to me. I don't have the courage to post something like that to a fan base.
Did you ever do a fish poster, Mike?
No, I had.
Oh my god!
Is that a whole thing?
First of all, the fish fans are like ferocious and voracious and all those words, but they will rip into a poster, man. They just no holds barred, just go at it. Like it's pretty wild.
What is the IP? Be it like a sports franchise or even like just some sort of entertainment that you guys, that to have someone come in and reimagine it, you would be that troll in the comment being like, don't you dare even think about changing.
Oh, don't you dare touch it.
Yeah.
I don't know, the Yankees logo. Don't you dare touch the Yankees logo. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I might feel like that with bands. Like I think if someone started like fucking with the Metallica logo or something that's like super classic like that, I might get upset.
I know how much you love the 311 logo, Mike.
I've got it tattooed on my back. So,
Joe, you did sort of a paper overlay on yours as well.
Yeah, I was gonna explore like a distressed effect using like the true grit, like application effect, but I was just like, I'll just add like a subtle texture behind and just kind of like call it a day. So,
and I think that's sort of a response. You could almost say this for like the last 15 years. There's been a response to trying to get design to feel a little more human or analog or like it was crafted, you know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm a little older than you guys, I think, but in the 90s, in the late 90s, it was rave flyers, and since technology was coming out, you didn't want anything to look hand done. You wanted everything to look like a million colors and to be super techy looking, right? And then there's been, for the last 15 years, the backlash from that. Now we just want everything to look very analog to a lot of degrees. And I kind of feel like it's not going to go back to that. I feel like.
Do you think we'll get that kind of handmade aesthetic reflected in sports branding anytime soon?
I mean, you've got what's his name out of New York. He did a bunch of stuff for the Buccaneers last couple of years.
Contino, right?
Yeah.
Well, he did a whole wordmark thing for the White Sox.
Yeah, he did a White Sox thing. So I think it's coming, but the problem is they're not hiring Mike and Joe to do their stuff. You know what I mean? Like, well, when you go to their conventions and stuff, it's a little bit insular, and honestly, that's the sort of the point of this website to some degree is like, hey, let's get some new fucking ideas into some sports logos, especially from people that don't even really like sports. Let's see what their ideas are.
I feel like the sports industry embraces this sort of thing, like Contino and those sorts of vibes when it comes to merch.
Yes, merch.
And when it comes to sort of like brand world and moments where they can be more expressive. Yeah. But like when it's on a jersey or it's on a helmet, it's hard to get away from that crisp sort of effect.
When it's the face of a multi-billion-dollar machine, you want it to feel modern and you want it to feel expensive.
It depends on the league, because you could say baseball, they got a lot of old-looking shit in baseball, because it is old.
Yeah.
But
is that kind of some of what you talked about with the Arsenal, the Arsenal contest of well, so much of it is based in history. Like Washington, they announced that they're going to stay Washington football team for this coming season. Could you see that whenever they've said we're going to announce a name at the end of next season? Could you see the potential for something, a little different if we're going to completely, put our mark on this is a new era, a new chapter? Or do you think it's, we need to?
Sure. So you think they're going to go with what the Rams did, where it looks like, it's not classic looking logo, or are they going to do something that looks like old timey football, like the Steelers?
Find out next week.
I mean, I like old shit, I prefer if it looked like it was an old fucking logo, What do you guys, what are your takes on that, if you have one?
I mean, it would be cool to see the personality of like some of those old logos you see, because like there was a lot of personality in them, but I feel like people are so comfortable with just like sticking with what everyone else is doing that like you're just going to see like those clean, crisp, like simplistic logos, with like the crisp lines. So
yeah, no, I mean, you're right. It's, the way the designers see the world is different than how my uncle who watches football on Sunday sees the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that applies to sports branding.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
I feel like you would see it first in baseball, or maybe in like, European football club before you see it in, a sort of traditional American football sort of logo. It's just, it like you said, it has to look expensive. It has to look sharp and aggressive.
Sure.
They're less concerned about the history of where their team comes from or their state. And they're a little bit more on this like idea of it has to be cutting edge. I mean, it's just the way I see it.
I think so. And I think, but it probably all comes down to who's making the decisions at the top office, who's the person who's never drawn a picture in their life, who gets to decide what goes and what doesn't.
I mean, I would hate to be that guy of like, you're putting all this trust in, an agency or even a designer,
sure,
knowing that like, this is, we can't go back on it next year. We're going to spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars in merchandising. And is this going to be a thing that people are going to get tattooed on themselves, or is it going to be just universally hated?
Sure. Well, the Chicago Fire a year and a half ago released a new logo, and it's so universally hated, they're going to change it after the season.
I didn't see it. They were changing
it's only going to last 2 seasons.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so bad. And I don't want to talk. I'm not going to say who designed it. I don't want to talk crap on them, because the whole process is difficult, and the client probably picked this and this and combined the two and told them to use this color or whatever. But the fans absolutely hate it. And so they hate it so much that they're redoing it 2 years later, which is crazy. So it happens. But that's why they invented focus groups, Joe. Like, people are scared, So they have to show it to a bunch of people.
Couldn't be me. You know what? If the new Chicago Fire logo doesn't have just a shit ton of stars on it,
yeah,
throw it away.
I don't even want to see it.
Yeah, and on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap it up because my kids, it's bath time for Bongo over here. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on and doing these awesome logos. Let me know if you ever get an itch to do another logo, because I think I'm going to keep doing the website. I don't know. We'll see how it goes until I get a cease and desist from all the sports leagues in the country. But no, seriously, thanks so much. The designs are awesome, and I really enjoyed this talk.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and had a blast working, amongst the greats. Loved competing with you, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm a big fan of your work. This was awesome. I was super stoked to be invited and to, enter a logo into the ring. And congrats, sir. You won.
Thank you.
Superb logo. Buzzsaw.
Real quick before we go, tell people where they can find your work online.
For me, my profile handle is JoeFlo Montana. You can find me on Instagram. My website is joeflores.me for more portfolio-based work. Hit me up there.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. Just Mike Tabie. Don't look at my website. It's really old, outdated. Just leave it alone.
Everyone's website's old and outdated.
Don't look at it. I haven't looked at it in quite some time. So
yeah,
Instagram's fun.
And then, of course, I always have links in the show description for everybody. So look down there. Okay. Thanks again, guys. See you later. Man.